What is up, everyone? In case you have not noticed, I'm not Stacy Perez. I'm Keith Fleming, filling in as hosting the Fantasy and Frames Waiver Show. She normally says the gang's all here. I mean, are we?
The boys are here instead.
The boys are back. The
boys
are back in town. Yeah, you're stuck with me, Rich, and my boy Kevin Tompkins. We were talking about. I think it's definitely the best looking faction of our what would you call it? Is it a court? What is a five people? What do you call that? Quintet. I need to go back to school. Stupid Georgia education.
We are a
system.
three-wheel bicycle, whatever those are called.
But we are here like we are every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. to help you, what is it? Scour, I think is the word I'm looking for. The waiver wires to get the best plays. And I just want to say, we've been kind of killing it. We were ahead of the curve on Fields, even though I know there haven't been great news in the last few hours for people like me who have 100% ownership of Justin Fields in fantasy football leagues right now. Josh Downs. There's been a lot of guys that we kind of got in before. And really, you kind of hurt our feelings that their percentage, it took so long for them not to qualify to be on this show. But before we get into that, we're doing the Vampire League. It's rough, right? Like, I think we got screwed. I'm just going to full disclosure. I had always heard in a Vampire League, if you don't get to draft like we did, then the teams that do don't get to pick up waiver wire people. But somehow that is not what's happened. So it's been very rough, even though our team has actually been competitive. Like 3 weeks? I think there was like 3 weeks. It kind of went down to the wire. We got to win
but
now.
And the tide changes.
Yes. And man, what a great week to get the dub, because the man with 9 touchdowns already this season. No surprise. We're going to go ahead and announce it. We are yanking Derrick Henry. King Henry will be part of our team. I think we're about to go on a winning streak, start picking up players left and right. We got Drake May. Like, we are heating up, ladies and gentlemen. So any comments on our big victory? It only took 6 weeks. I have leagues that I actually drafted a team and had a decent spot, and I'm also 1-5. So it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, look, tis the season for us to take Derrick Henry, who I did advocate for when I am advocating for the old running back.
Right?
I mean,
that is a dead giveaway.
There's something to that. But look, tis the season for Derrick Henry to turn into a pumpkin. So look, now that he will be on a roster, I am just primed and pumped for him to get 10 fantasy points in sleeper every week.
Well, I actually feel like that it's been a blessing the way the season's gone, because I think he's had 3 games, right, with 15 or less carries, because basically anytime they've been in a shootout, they go to a lot more Justice Hill, etc. But we saw it again this week in Washington. They get a lead. You're going to have to stop Derrick Henry because I thought Romo was – I don't know if you guys got to watch that game. I don't know if it was in your area, but I thought it was the best Romo I've seen in a long time. He just kept hammering the point that now with Derrick Henry in the backfield with Lamar Jackson, teams had to basically stack 8 in the box, because if you don't, good luck stopping that 1-2 rushing attack. And that's why Zay Flowers is just killing people right now. And, Rashad Bateman, of course, because I said Mark Andrews was dead everywhere. He catches a touchdown and has 60 yards. Kyle Pitts the week before. So if you got any tight ends that have done nothing this year that you want to go off, send me a DM message, put it in the comments. I'll say they're dead at some point this week on one of our shows, and they'll have a breakout game, because apparently that is the key jinx. Something before we get into the positions, I know that's why everybody's here, but I've got to let my man Kevin Tompkins gloat, because I saw a lot of people over the first, especially 4 weeks, because we're having, the Derrick Henrys and, all these big running backs, Saquon Barkley, that zero RB was dead. Kevin, I think that it was a little premature demise. What do you think?
Yeah, the many are saying that zero RB is dead, and I will actually. I'm not going to play both sides of the fence, but I'm at least going to advocate for both sides of the coin. Where the zero RB are dead people will say that look, running backs, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones. Look, we're getting older running back production when we all wrote these guys off. That's why, Saquon Barkley rose into the first round, but Derrick Henry was pretty easily a second round pick. Alvin Kamara, you could get in like the 6th round, sometimes even the 7th.
Aaron you were recommending people to draft him at that level, if I remember correct.
Well, it's a two-pronged thing where you're looking at wide receivers getting pushed up the board, and because of that, things have to fall, dominoes have to fall, and the older running back was pretty much the thing that fell more often than not, because elite tight ends weren't falling off really. I mean, you were still getting values with
how's that working out?
I mean, what looked like values, I do want to say, with like Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts and stuff, and Dalton Kincaid and guys like that. But yeah, where you could get a Ken Walker in the 5th. We saw him the last like couple weeks of draft season just absolutely rise. And, now that's making me wish I had gotten a lot more Kenneth Walker.
He looks great.
But kind of the overarching thesis of zero RB, you're trying to get running back value, replaceable value for a lot of the top running backs. You're always going to have the running backs that have the legendary season. That's just the way it goes. You're going to have the Kyron Williams. You're going to have, the Christian McCaffreys of the years before, Todd Gurley's, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, guys like that. You're always going to have Jonathan Taylor. You're always going to have those guys. But the fact that those are fewer and far between now, more than ever, is even more of a reason to wait on running backs.
Until this week, the top 3 backs, to your point, CMC, Bijan, Breece. I mean, obviously CMC hadn't played a snap, but I mean, I don't think Bijan or Breece had a top 10 week at running back before this week. So to your point, that's 3 tough pills to swallow. That was probably in your first 4 picks, right? 5 at the most.
And in the first 6 weeks of the season, you could get the top 5 finishers in PPR scoring at running back. You could get one of those running backs in the 7th round or later, and in multiple weeks, I think 4 out of those 6 weeks, 2 backs from the 7th round or later were in the top 5. 3 of them in week 5, when you're looking at Tank Bigsby, DeAndre Swift, Chuba Hubbard. Oh, actually, make it 4. Rico Dowdle as well. Mm-hmm. So, look, running back is the most replaceable position in fantasy. It's where you don't have to spend all your draft capital. And we're seeing that seismic shift now where people building fantasy teams are going to build with wide receivers and then draft running backs later. There's always going to be a place where if you have the belief in like a Breece Hall or a Bijan or, any guys of that ilk that are going to have that legendary season, which those legendary seasons can carry your fantasy team. If you don't have any belief in those guys or you don't want to spend the draft capital, you can draft all these, pretty replaceable running backs. Look at Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift, Tank Bigsby,
Sean Taylor, Hunt, Bucky Irvin, right?
Trey Sermon, like all these guys. And then not only that, but like on the waiver wire, you can get 1 to 2 week guys like Zach Charbonnet when Ken Walker was out. I mean, Zach Moss has been pretty solid too. Mm-hmm. Austin Eckler, like you can get these very available. J.K. Dobbins,
for God's sakes. I mean, it's crazy. To your
point. We just littered off more than a dozen names that were available that you could get, and you could add Sean Tucker onto that list. I'm sure we'll probably mention him a couple times tonight. But yeah, so just the overarching thing that while wide receivers, a lot of them have gotten hurt. We've seen Rashee Rice, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp. We've seen a lot of those top end wide receivers go down, but it just shows you that there's so much wide receiver depth, but the top end of wide receiver cannot be replaced. No. Like you can't replace a guy even like a Drake London, who a lot of questions were talked about. Could he sustain where he was being drafted with his production? And right now, it's looking like he is. So, running back, zero running back is not dead. I know I talked a lot. I know it went a lot of places, but zero RB is dead.
There is nothing I enjoy more than hearing you talk zero RBs. You have converted me over the years with your take, and
we got another one.
I've been more successful. I mean, I just have in leagues. Like it's pretty nice when you look down and you have like Nico Collins, Rashee Rice, Justin Jefferson. It's 3 of your first 6 picks, and I'll take my chances. It's why I'm succeeding in Scott Fishbowl right now. Is my running backs look weak after the draft, and people were concerned about Kyron. He's killed it. He was the one I spent up on. I've got Aaron Jones. I got Austin Eckler. I've got, Devin Singletary, like all these guys that a lot of people looked at as trash. And to your point, they've been just successful. I do also just want to say real quickly, a lot of people are taking that victory lap because the zero RB thing, whatever. But if you're taking victory laps on older backs and not giving up on them, 6 weeks in on a 17-game season, most of my concerns with these guys is can they handle the long season, the mileage without getting nicked up. We're already seeing it with Aaron Jones and a lot of these guys. I'm just saying I wouldn't get too crazy with your victory laps because there's a lot of season to go. I mean, basically, we still have 2/3 of the season left. And again,
that's the thesis behind a lot of those older backs is like, yeah, you're going to get front weighted production. But when you're talking about playoff weeks, like, it's funny, like you talk about Scott Fishbowl, like I have 4.5 running backs right now. I've never had that many running backs in my life. Like
Who's
looking at my Scott.
That's what I was wondering.
Samaje Perine.
Okay, there you fair enough.
Yeah, he's like the half. But I mean, Chase Brown, Tyrone Tracy, Ray Davis, Jaylen Warren. Like Jaylen Warren's just coming back and getting in the swing of things, but like Ray Davis last night for the Bills,
boy,
pretty damn good.
No, he looked at you talked about him
that
all
catch.
summer.
That catch he made.
I didn't think he caught it. Like I was like, "There's no way he caught that," and it's like, "Holy shit, he did catch it." But I want to thank you because you pumping up Ray Davis all along. Not only did I draft him in several,
I don't think I pumped up anybody more than Ray Davis.
That's what I'm saying. I literally have left him on, like in all the teams that I had him. I still have him, even though he's done nothing because I'm like, all he needs is an opportunity. And boy, was I glad that I waited because I think there's going to be a little bit of competition in Buffalo if you saw what I saw last week. Rich, one other thing I want to talk about before we move on to the plays. I know it's easy to forget because they were on a bye after their big win in London last week, but one of the 2 remaining undefeated teams, your Minnesota Vikings, are facing, the bullies on the block right now, the Detroit Lions, who they lost that Tampa game, and they're like, all right, we're just going to smash teams in the mouth. It's been really impressive the way they've been doing it. We see the weapons they have with Jameson and everything. Big blow, obviously, losing their top pass rusher. But how confident are you? Because, I mean, I think the game of the week, everybody would agree with that. How confident are you the Vikings will still be undefeated after their matchup with the Lions Sunday?
Well, I mean, okay, so I got to preface this with some stuff. So first and foremost, I just got to say Clash of the Titans this week, I think, honestly. Like, it's going to be an unstoppable force, meaning an immovable object between that offense and Brian Flores. Like, Brian Flores' defense, like, who's going to give first? I really hope that O'Connell watched the Lions and the Cowboys game closely. And I hope he learned something and took away how you don't take your foot off the gas. Keep your foot on the gas and keep going. Like that's been the theme that we've seen in Minnesota for a very long time is giving up big leads and making it a close game in the end of things when it really shouldn't have gone that way at all. So I'm really hoping about that. But the way that I always look at it, and this is kind of a cop-out, but in all honesty, I always split the wins between the divisional rivals, and it's whoever the home team is. And so, like, when we went up against the Packers, I actually had that as a loss. It was a beautiful win when we came away with it, and even more so watching Stacy shove that pie in her face. But no, I do think that the Vikings are going to walk away with this one just because of the fact that they got the home field advantage. That stadium is loud.
Coming off a bye, right? Which I think's got to help. They've been prepared for this for 2 weeks. And Jared Goff, it was my one concern with the Lions this year. Jared Goff is great, but if he is forced to do a lot and you can get pressure, which we know the Vikings are going to get pressure, Goff will still golf. And I'm just, nobody has done, in my opinion, a better job of scheming up different defensive plans each week, but still bringing just absolute chaos. I mean, almost every QB, really with the exception of Purdy, who even he looked frustrated at times, has looked like there was no place they would rather be less than on the football field facing the Minnesota Vikings this year. I tend to agree with you. I love teams coming off a bye, especially well-coached teams. I think this is a really well-coached team, giving them that extra week of prep. So, we got a girl, Rachel, asking, no Stacy or Erica. Nope, it's just the boys this week. It's a guys' night.
Sorry, Rachel.
Unfortunately, Stacy is still without internet, so be thinking about her and those people affected by the hurricane in Florida. And our sweet Erica is feeling under the weather. We hope she feels better immediately. At that, she said she had no voice, so she was really worried about that. All right, let's get to a question, and then we'll get into these positions. And this is something that I saw debated a lot on the Twitter sphere today. What do you think I should do about Garrett Wilson? My current wide receiver core is Reed, Downs, Thomas Jr., Judy, and then obviously Garrett Wilson. I kind of made the point and got into the fray, which I hate doing that you're kind of stuck because his value is going to be at an all-time low. You obviously want to, if you're going to trade somebody like that, you need to get something back in return. And I don't think you're going to get a fair value right now. The bottom line is his target volume is going to take a hit. You just look how much Rodgers is targeting Lazard. God almighty, there's nobody he's had a better connection with than Devontae Adams. I am under the impression, though, that maybe this will open up this Jets offense, make it more efficient. And that could mean even though Garrett Wilson is not getting this monster target, and the only reason we're saying this is he's the most targeted player in the NFL through 6 weeks. Even if his targets take a hit, maybe his points stay along the same line, but it's definitely not a good thing. I've seen some people arguing, don't stress, don't worry. Do you disagree, Kev?
I'm going to push back on that a little bit. Okay. I think the way, Mike Williams, the Jets said that they're willing to put Mike Williams on the trade block. I would say they'd probably find a way to get some other team to pay that money, or if they just want to get rid of him, or, GM Aaron Rodgers, if we want to say that, find a way to get rid of Mike Williams. But look, I would argue that this could make this offense even more condensed and more efficient with 2 target earners. Garrett Wilson doesn't have to see top coverage anymore from opposing defenses. I would say that, I know they are absolutely going all in with Aaron Rodgers and what they have to do to placate whatever for Aaron Rodgers, but Garrett Wilson on one side, Devontae Adams on the other side. You still got Allen Lazard. This is probably his most comfortable wide receiver core. Tyler Conklin is no slouch either. And then you got Breece Hall still in the back. Offensive line is still an issue, but I do believe that this offense, as constructed, could be the most talented and efficient core as far as top end talent, because Green Bay has always had good receivers. They've had Donald Driver, they've had Greg Jennings, they've had Jordy Nelson, they've had all the Devontae Adams, obviously, but the 2 guys at the top end who you can make Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson being top 10 NFL real life wide receivers, you can make that case. So to have 2 of them, they're going to pull coverage from each other, and then you add Allen Lazard. I'm totally fine with Allen Lazard as a low end flex guy, but I don't see this as being a hit on Garrett Wilson like a lot of other people do. While the target, just the raw targets, I don't think he's not going to get 21 targets, but even if he gets 8 to 10, because efficiency is an issue. He's only caught 41 out of those 65 targets. Efficiency with Devontae Adams there, I think can improve. So I do like that.
Still an above average quarterback, which
Right.
Again, I don't consider myself.
Yeah, it's not Zach
an
Wilson throwing to both
expert,
these guys.
but I haven't liked what I've seen. He just, to me, does look a little bit slower, a little kind of like Brady that last year in Tampa. He doesn't like to take hits anymore. Like he will definitely chuck it if there's, a massive hit coming in. And Rodgers used to be one of those guys that would stand in there. And what scares me is how quickly he's getting rid of the ball. Now, you may be right that adding Adams and Wilson, maybe that does make this offense fair.
And we saw them use a lot more motion with Todd Downing, too. We saw them use a lot more motion,
fair.
a lot more pre-snap stuff. So that's is only going to help.
Too, which is the real
right. That's only going to help Aaron Rodgers as far as scheming guys open and getting the ball out quicker. That's going to certainly help things, too. All of that in concert. The pre-snap motion, getting the ball out quicker to Adams and to Wilson. I think that's a net win for Green Bay in the grand scheme of things.
I think that's fair. All right, let's
for the Jets. I say Green Bay just I'm so used to
because they're
my team. I'm so Rodgers to Adams. I have an Adams jersey literally right there. I have Green Bay like everything, and I'm just so used to it.
It's so crazy though that with the Brett Favre thing, right? Like that, it always looks so weird seeing him in like Jets and Vikings jerseys, and I still have not gotten used to in year 2 seeing Rodgers in like Jets jerseys. It's like, where's the G? Where's the yellow and green?
Yeah. Well. I mean, Rodgers hasn't defrauded a state welfare fund yet, so he hasn't gotten that arc yet.
Fair enough. I'm blaming it on Bountygate. They knocked the sense out of Brett.
True.
Y'all want to talk some waiver wire ads?
I suppose we could probably do that.
Man, we are 22 minutes in. Stacy would be killing me right now if she was here, but that's okay. The boys are running the show, so we'll probably get a little off topic more than once. I know that. Yeah, there you go. I love it. Me and Kev are both on Drake May. I'm shocked his percentage is this low because I know I missed last week, guys. 2 weeks ago, I said go get Drake May. I believe in his talent, and he's still like I was one of the people all week on DFS show saying I like Drake May for MME. I love Demario Douglas for MME and cash because again, I just think if you watch Jacoby Brissett this year and you watch what Drake May did in college, it was going to be a huge upgrade in so many different areas. We saw it. I mean, he again 21.5 points, QB9 on the week. He outscored Hurts, Daniels, Burrow, and Stroud in his very first start. Pretty impressive. What I loved, he used his legs, 38 rushing yards. That is right at the amount of rushing yards per game he had in college, right at 40 yards per game. So you're going to get those free points. We talk about it all the time. It's so important. And I mean, again, just to remind you the guy he was, his last 2 seasons at UNC, he accounted for 78 touchdowns, 16 rushing, 62 passing, only 16 interceptions in 26 games. And what I love the most about May and these QBs on bad teams, they're down all the time. And when you're down all the time, you're throwing it a lot. We saw that in this game where his line did not look great. It was like, did he even throw a touchdown in the first half or was it early the second? I can't remember, but I know most of his points were scored late when the game was out of hand. There's going to be a lot of that this year, right, Kev? The rest of the way?
Yeah, I mean, look, we just wanted some offensive improvement. We just wanted this team to look different, athletically. And look, Drake May, that touchdown he had, that drop in the bucket, to Demario Douglas. That's just like the tip of the iceberg right there as far as what you could expect. Jacoby Brissett doesn't make that throw. He also doesn't scramble. Drake May had a 13% scramble rate, which was second behind Jane Daniels in week 6. So there's going to be rushing upside. There's going to be some passing upside where the thesis of that Drake May play was, hey, maybe he can lift all these boats in the offense, which you look at the offense, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne, Hunter Henry. Like it's not like completely barren. It's not like the Las Vegas Raiders right now who are running out DJ Turner and Trey Tucker and obviously Brock Bowers.
I thought I didn't know Trey Tucker's name very well when I saw DJ. I'm like, did Trey Tucker change his name? And they're like, no, that's another guy. It's like, oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, all they're contractually obligated to have names that sound like Trey Tucker.
And under 6 feet tall wide receivers, which is usually not a good recipe in the NFL, but I digress.
I mean, look, he threw for 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 38 yards. I would say this offense had a pulse. Like,
Yeah,
it's not fully alive yet, but they're coming out of the coma. So, I mean, I think that's all you can ask for right now to let Drake May build off of this. And I always have said too, with these rookie quarterbacks, that you just have to kind of let them just get through it. With CJ Stroud last year, the most important thing I think for CJ Stroud's emergence at the end of the season was that in the very beginning of the season, when they were losing games, CJ Stroud was out there throwing the ball 40, 45, 50 times. Like, you have to let them get reps. You have to let them get through it. If they give Drake May the opportunity to do that, I think it's going to be only positive for him. And then for the fantasy stuff that we all like, we know the rushing is there. We know that he has a great arm. I mean, I would say last week was just an absolute success for Drake May and what we can expect going forward. And from like week 6 on, I would not be surprised if Drake May is right around QB 10 to QB 12 with what he can offer fantasy managers. So I think if you're quarterback needy, you need to be going to get him now.
If you have Justin Fields, who we're hearing, it looks like they are going to give Russell at least a start. I would be, especially if Drake May's out there going to get, because again, these rushing guys are just so freaking valuable. Like 4 points each week at the end of the day is so big. And then if they, get a touchdown, that's 10 points. You're talking about for a guy like him, he averaged 40 yards per game in college. And again, 30-80. I think he had like 15 week 1 and he only played like a quarter. So you're going to get, to Kevin's point, rushing each week. Rich, you want to talk about the Red Rocket a little bit, right? The Red Rifle?
You know what? Actually, I was so excited about Drake May that's who I studied up on this week.
Yes,
that's who I wrote all my notes on. And then like, sweet. When you said Kevin and you took, I was like, wait, did I? Oh, nuts! I did do that. So I did a quick research.
Darn, we got to talk more about Drake May.
Yeah. I do.
And by the way, to answer this question, what do you guys think? Because I think that's interesting between the two. I think I would take Drake May against Jacksonville.
I want the running guy every time. Yeah. Like, I mean, I've been doing this with Fields. There's
downside against Minnesota in Minnesota.
Yep.
So I would take Drake May.
Some hiccups. Yeah. And another thing to add in for Drake May too is the fact that the Jaguars have given up the most points to quarterbacks. They've given up 24.1 points per game to quarterbacks. That. So yeah, I'm taking Drake May in that one, I think. But I did look up real quick just so I could say something about Andy Dalton. I think that Andy Dalton is going to have a fun game this week just because of the fact he's going up against Washington. Washington has been blowing people out of the water, so there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game. And Washington's giving up the 9th most points right now to opposing quarterbacks. So I do think that Andy Dalton has a good chance of helping you through the bye weeks and getting you the points that you need. But if you can get Drake May, go get Drake May first.
Yeah. So with the news of Russell Wilson, real quick before we move on to wide receivers, is there any value in him? Like, does that, or do you think that just adds more? Because you were talking about Jaylen Warren. I could see Jaylen Warren, I think, having a bump with somebody like Russell Wilson. We know in Seattle, he threw to the backs a good bit. But I just don't see much of a difference. I mean, it's not like Fields has been turning it over like crazy. I know he's got a couple of fumbles. He's only got 1 interception this season. I don't totally understand this move, and not just because I'm angry, because, again, I have him rostered on basically every team in fantasy.
The only thing that I would say about Russell Wilson is that as an ardent Jaden Warren guy, that I do love Russell Wilson for specifically his outlook going forward, because obviously with Justin Fields is able to use his legs to extend plays, extend drives, get out of trouble. Russell Wilson doesn't have that. So he's going to have to look for an outlet. And Jaylen Warren, or even like Najee Harris, or whatever, like UFL running back they want to toss out between Jonathan Ward and Aaron Champlin, whatever running back, but probably more Jaylen Warren. Like, I do love that for him. For like quarterback wise, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, there's another guy that I think should be added as well that we haven't talked about, Bo Nix. Like, look out with Bo Nix 2 top 8 quarterback performances. He had 68 rushing yards last week against the Chargers, and then he gets the Saints and the Panthers the next 2 weeks. He's probably not going to add too much in the passing department, but if you're going to get 30, 40 yards, possibly a touchdown, I think he scored a touchdown every other week. So I don't hate that. If you have Caleb Williams or you have, Dak Prescott on bye, you have Justin Fields that you're looking to pivot from. If you can't get Drake May, I think Bo Nix is at least a decent pivot while you maybe either look for somebody else or
get
another quarterback to kind of interchange the two.
Even Dalton, we don't know how long or what Carolina's plan is eventually with Bryce. And, the Wilson Fields thing, I could see that going back and forth several times. That's why I'm so shocked they're going to it when Fields is playing well. But, we know that Bo Nix has been Peyton's guy since literally the start of training camp. So on top of all that upside with the rushing and what he's been doing, he's not losing that job. He's just not there. If he got through those first few weeks where it was -1 yards per attempt, I think he's going to survive the rest of the way.
And also Jim, they are in Jacksonville, but they are right now secretly looking for housing to stash Doug Peterson. And when they do fire him, after they lose the Drake May-led Patriots.
Well, and also, the rookies had never won in London. And then I heard a lot of people saying, that's why you take the Jags versus the Bears. And sometimes, trends are great. I'm a DFS guy. I love a trend, but come on, guys. Really,
I heard, I don't know who the sideline announcer. I don't know who the sideline announcer was for the Bears and Jaguars. But they talked to Caleb Williams and they're like, you just set a rookie international game record. I'm like, this is the qualifiers. That's what we're using now. We're using the international game as you set some kind of record.
Caleb's handlers are immediately getting on his Wikipedia, putting under
that's like the Nickelodeon, that
the Slimy Award or whatever.
Trubisky one. Yeah. The MVP.
I love it. All right, let's talk some wide receiver because there's some really good options out there to what you were talking earlier. Kev, you had Juju, right?
Yeah,
I did. In case people forgot, because it seems like a long time ago, week 5, but Juju pretty much ran the Rashee Rice low 8 out roll and went 7 for 130. And, I did call him in the Fantasy and Frames waiver wire piece. I did call him we have Rashee Rice at home replacement for fantasy managers.
You talked to him I think he's on the show big time, and then he went out and had a monster game, and I'm mad I didn't listen to you across the board.
He's not going to have 7 for 130 every game.
Of course not, but he's going to get volume, right?
But he's going to be targeted. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is the one throwing in the ball, and you have non-target earners out there like Justin Watson and all these other guys just taking up space where you've got a guy that has been a proven target earner next to Travis Kelce, and I'm totally fine with that. He's as long as you keep your expectations not sky high, I think you need to just go add Juju if he's somewhere out there, because people did forget about him because he didn't play for a week. So it's perfectly reasonable, given the 33% rostership, that a lot of people forgot about Juju Smith-Schuster in the week he had and the role that is more than likely going to be coming to him. I believe he only ran 70% of the routes. Let me look at it. It was 66% of the routes. I see that coming up to about 75 to 80. Yeah, that's great for your targets per route run leagues. That's great for the 0 people who play in those. So I do see that coming up to about probably 75 to 80%. I don't think, with the way that Kansas City rotates wide receivers, I don't think that he's going to be going out and getting 95, 100%. That's just not how they operate. But certainly Juju Smith-Schuster should be the most fantasy-friendly ad outside, of anybody. If you're looking for a second target to Travis Kelce, Juju's best shot at it.
And I want to say that sometimes I question the sleeper roster ratings. He's available, and I have a waiver claim on him now. I can't believe I missed it last week. I would have got him while he was on the bye for sure. in a 16-team league I'm in, to your point, Kev. So people really, I guess, did forget about him with him being on. Oh, no, trust me, he is the number one price. I'm spending a good bit of bucks. So I love your call this week, Rich, especially because last week was just such a tough matchup for him. We know that he's always on the outside. Patrick Surtain is usually on the best wide receiver on that side.
Yeah.
And he was, and he's maybe the best corner cover. And I think people have kind of forgot this season Quentin Johnston's had him. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about him?
Yeah, so actually I screwed up again and I started talking about Juju because I was so excited. No, I'm just kidding. No, Quentin Johnston. This was a waiver wire ad that when I first thought about it, it kind of gave me the ick just a little bit, just because I'm still stuck in last year and how awful that was. But I think that's why his numbers are so low and what everybody is feeling right now, why everybody is low on him. There is a little bit of concern with the ankle injury that he had in the last game, but he did come back in the game. So I think that he will be okay. And like you just said, Keith, he's going to have a much easier matchup this week, especially the next couple weeks. He's going to be going up against Carolina this week and Pitt next week, who respectively have given up 22.1 points or no. Yeah. Sorry, he looked good in his first couple matchups against Carolina and Pitt, where he put up 22.1 points and he put up 12.4 points respectively. The next couple weeks are really good, though. He's going up against Arizona, who's 7th in points given up to wide receivers, New Orleans, who is 8th, and Cleveland, who is 9th. So I
will say, though, those first two is because they can't stop the run. So if it gets into a situation where they're throwing and the Chargers are down, I don't believe they're actually good secondaries. If you watch the Tampa New Orleans game last week, you know what I mean? Or Arizona, same deal. These teams can just run it down their throat, and that's been the issue. So like sometimes that's where I always tell people, especially early in the season, don't necessarily just look at statistics. I'll agree, Cleveland is a tough matchup for sure, but I believe you can throw in Arizona, New Orleans. It's just our team's gonna have to.
No, that's what I'm saying is that they've given up the 7th most points.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, he's got a really good matchup the next 3 weeks. And so even if he underperforms this week because he is still injured or anything like that, I think he's still a great waiver wire ad because he's going to be good for you in the long run of things. So, at 24%, 24.3%, he should be available in your leagues. I would definitely, if you got a spot open for him, I'd pick him up.
A lot of first read targets too. They are designing plays to get the ball in his hands.
The only overarching thing that I have with the Chargers in total is that, and it involves everybody, even Ladd McConkey, is that they just do not push the ball down the field. The Chargers were the last team out of all 32 teams to have a week with over 200 air yards, and that was last week.
I think that's Herbert being banged up, and as he gets healthier, I do believe he's going to start. I think they want to keep him healthy.
But that's offensive intent, too. That's the thing, is that's offensive intent to where you don't have the deep ball you don't have that club in your bag. So that's what at least for right now. Ladd McConkey has been like their highest ADOT wide receiver consistently outside of like random Darius Davis shots, and that's even at like a 9.8 yard ADOT. So that's where I have.
He's incredible down the field. I hope that they eventually let him do that because that was what he excelled at Georgia, was big plays.
Right, and that would be where that was the thesis behind DJ Chark, was that if they had him, he could open a lot of that stuff up deep for the Josh Palmers, for the Ladd McConkeys, for whatever rando tight end, my boy Will Dissly. But yeah, so I don't think that they've run their offense, especially in the passing game, the way they've wanted to, but it's also helped that they've had the out of having a guy like J.K. Dobbins. And I do think we're going to talk about him a little bit, Kamani Vidal too. I mean, his first NFL touch was a nice wheel route, for a touchdown. So that was really nice to see. And if he can provide some of that, he's wearing Eckler's 30. So is that a sign? I mean,
well, it'd be nice. I have a lot of fond memories of Austin Eckler and the Chargers. The guy that I'm going to talk about, go steal this guy. Like, go take him. If you listen to me and Kevin on Friday on the Daily Fix, I recommended him for cash and MME, did the same on Fantasy Six Pack. He was one of the 7 receivers I ended up playing in cash this weekend, and he rewarded me, and it was a very easy thesis for me. in games going back to last year, and it's how long he's been in the league, that he has seen 7 or more targets. There are 6 of them. He scored double digits in every one of them, averaging 12.7 points per game in PPR formats in those 6 games. And I just didn't think there was any way with Drake May, they weren't going to throw it more, especially against a tough opponent. And he was going to see 7+ targets. He did. He saw 9 targets, and he did a lot with them. 6 receptions, 92 yards, a touchdown, 21.2 points. That's wide receiver 9 on the week, wide receiver 5 from the main slate of Sunday 1 p.m., 4 p.m. games. And people need to start respecting my man, Demario Pop Douglas. He's a pretty good wide receiver. Among wide receivers, 23rd in quality rating, 19th in catchable target rate, 8th in target rate, 10th in route win rate, 6th in win rate versus man. He's now scored in PPR double digits in 3 of his last 4 this season. And more importantly, he has had 9 targets or more in 3 of his last 4 games. 3 of those 4 games were with Jacoby Brissett. I promise you the Patriots with Drake May are going to throw it more than they did with Jacoby Brissett. I see huge volume for him the remainder of the season. I am still very high on Jalen Polk. I'm not going to get off the bandwagon, but I think it may be a year 2, year 3 type deal. And Demario Douglas is the best and most trustworthy receiver on this team that's going to be down and throwing a ton. And when you have a guy, especially if it's a full PPR league, this is Wan'Dale Robinson with more upside to where you're going to get 8 to 12 points every single week. But he's going to have games like this last week because he did it last year. He had 3 games with 18 or more points in PPR formats where he goes out and he scores 18 to 20 points. So to me, go get him, like especially if it's full PPR format.
Yeah, there's been a shift in the Patriots and how they're mixing up their wide receivers because we saw Kayshon Boutte. Boutte. Is it Boutte or Boutte? I don't even know.
You're asking a country bumpkin. You know I couldn't pronounce it right even if I knew. So
I want to say Boutte. This sounds good. It sounds a lot better. But he bumped his routes up from 60% up to 76. Jalen Polk took a big hit.
Yeah.
And look, Jalen Polk, he is a work in progress right now. And I have to say, I know I have been touting Jalen Polk right now, but I think he's like persona non grata at the moment right now. If you have the room, you can stash him. But if you need production right now, you're not seeing it. And his routes went from 87% to 100% last week, down to 69%. That also coincided with Boutte's rise up and also Kendrick Bourne going from like 28% routes to 57. So it looks like we're finally getting a shift here between Polk maybe being like the 3rd, 4th, like a rotational wide receiver, where Demario Douglas should be earning more routes. I mean, his targets per route run last like 3 out of the 4 weeks were 30%, 27%, 32%. Like that screams you need to be on the field more.
Yeah,
because he's
8th among wide receivers right now, which is wild. But again, I do like the fact that 27 targets in 3 games, out of the last 4. I think he only had like 5, and I think it was last week's matchup. But again, I as we talked about, Drake May, we all believe in him. I just think Douglas, he proved it last year. Like he was kind of the breakout guy from down the stretch, and he's basically Wan'Dale Robinson on steroids. Because if he gets 7 targets, he's going to put up double digit game. It may not be a huge game, but you're going to get at least 12 points, and that's huge for like a wide receiver 3 or a flex on buys and et cetera, et cetera.
And of wide receivers with, I believe, 75 routes, Jalen Polk has the worst, 5th worst yards per route run at 0.50. That is bad, folks. That is like
that's not good.
That we're talking Elijah Moore, KJ Osborne, Mac Hollins territory.
Keith Fleming.
It's not great.
Not
it's
good.
like sub Mingo. Like if we're gonna use Mingo as like the Mendoza line in baseball, that is sub Mingo.
Great question before we transition to the running backs from Jason. He wants to know, he's dropping Jerome Ford. How would you rank these running backs? Jaylen Warren, Ty Chandler. Is it Vidal or Vidal?
It's Vidal.
Vidal. I don't know. I'll never get it right. And Ray Davis. Again, I think Kevin like secretly just changes my brain on so many things over the last few months. I'm going to go Ray Davis. I think this Bills offense is going to start running the ball. I mean, that's kind of been their goal, right? Like when they've looked good, they've ran it a lot and effectively. I love James Cook. I think James Cook, though, is better as a, one side of the coin of the rushing, not being what they're trying to do, because he's just going to get nicked up. He's too small. Like that, we've seen this over and over again with the guys his size. Ray Davis looks like a fucking tank, man. I understand there may be more opportunity, but the Steelers do love Najee Harris. I'll believe Jalen Warren's going to overtake that backfield when I see it. Ty Chandler, didn't I just hear Jorge Texas at Cam Akers just was traded to the Vikings, so that's probably not good for Ty Chandler. Maybe it just means Aaron Jones is more banged up than we thought.
I would say it's more of an indictment on Aaron Jones because he was off to the side practicing today, but very limited, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play. So I think that's a procedural move for them to have some kind of insurance, because more than likely Myles Gaskin's just going to stay on the practice squad.
Is that good for Damian Pearson? Because do we believe Joe Mixon can stay healthy the rest of the way?
They probably figured that they're fine with Dare Ogunbowale and Pierce and JJ Taylor. They're probably fine with all those guys.
Yeah.
More than Cam Akers. He was kind of like a fifth wheel.
Because I was the biggest Pierce truther 2 years ago, and then felt like the smartest man in the world year run, and took a lot of victory laps. Actually, if you still look at my account, I believe on Fantasy and Frames, it says first one on Damian Pierce Island. I'm not changing it. I'm still going to be the one planting the flag. Rich, which one of these guys, how would you rank them? Or who would you rank first?
I was going to say, so with the newest news about them trading for Akers, I'm going to go Ray Davis, Vidal, Ty Chandler, Warren. I think Chandler's going to have a really good chance. And we all knew that there was going to be some weeks where Jones just isn't going to play. Like I don't think that he's had a full healthy season in quite some time. So Chandler's going to get his chances, and he does look good out there when he does get the ball. So I'm not putting him above Vidal or Ray Davis, but I almost pivoted to him, but then I realized that the show sheet and everything was already made up. So I stuck with my guy that I already have. So
Kevin, if this was full point PPR, would you first of all, do you kind of agree with the way we had it? And because if it was full point PPR, I would probably be making a case for Warren and Vidal. But with it being half point PPR, I want guys that I think are going to get the rock. And to me, Ray Davis is like a guy that deserves goal line carries. I know obviously Josh Allen's there to vulture. Minnesota has proved they're going to run it a lot in the red zone, as they've done this season. But if it was a full point PPR, I think Warren, especially to your point, if Wilson starts playing, you could see him starting to have some of those big reception days that he did last year.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and you can crush any of those guys for one reason or another. Jalen Warren with Arthur Smith and his affinity for Najee Harris, and for whatever reason, who admittedly looked pretty good. I will say that, and those two seem like a match made in heaven.
That's what Najee Harris does. The minute everybody's out on him, he always fucks you by having a monster game. When you have him on your bench, you don't have him in any of your DK lineups. Thanks, Najee. Stupid my guys.
Chandler has been solidly efficient when he has played. When he had to come in London against the Jets, not the greatest scenario for him to really get going, but I still hold him in. Likely he's getting the start. I see him getting 13 to 15 carries. So I would put him first, but Ray Davis is not far behind. I think that's a lot of Bucky Irving, the kind of similarities of, we don't know quite how the split is going to work with James Cook, when both are healthy. So that's where I have some issue. But obviously James Cook is there. I would take Ray Davis over Ty Chandler just because we have the question still. I think, and Vidal, I would put pretty far behind those other three, just because while it was very encouraging to see Vidal get touches, Gus Edwards was out. I think Gus Edwards has outlived his usefulness at this point, but even Hassan Haskins was getting carries. It might be Jover for old Gus, but I do think Kamani Vidal can work his way into a role, but it's not going to be something where he challenges J.K. Dobbins unless he gets hurt. So,
and J.K.
Goodell,
Dobbins has used all of his bad injury luck. So I'm really like I can't remember a guy I'm pulling more for just to stay healthy this year than J.K. Dobbins.
Well, the thing about Dobbins is like, why are you running him out like 25 to 27 carries? Knowing 100% the injury history he has, that's the one thing that I have like what are you doing? Like, are you just trying to like break the wheels off of the guy? Because if you keep doing that, that's gonna happen again. You're gonna get into trouble with these running backs. So that's
like
why
Kamani Vidal eventually gets out of control, right?
Right. Kamani Vidal needs to be rostered. Like, he needs to be rostered in like 75% of leagues as a guy that we know in a Jim Harbaugh,
let's move over to the running back waiver because I know he's on there, and we'll just transition into that conversation.
There we go. Boom.
Watch, I forgot. I'll go first. That's my boy. Yes, it's a homer pick. Tyler Algier, 40%. He should be rostered in more leagues. I'm what you're talking about with J.K. Dobbins. I have very similar concerns with Bijan Robinson and his usage. It was great to see this week. Of course, it was the first time the Falcons had more than a 7-point lead all season. That he was not getting these monster touch totals because he's been nicked up a good bit in his year and a half in Atlanta. But this is now double-digit points to a 3. Monster game, obviously, versus Carolina, almost 20 points. Among running backs, he's 8th in yards per touch, 8th in juke rate, 8th in true yards per carry. And he is flat out an injury to Bijan Robinson away from being a potential top 10 back for however long he misses. But, oh, wait a minute. There's even some good chances coming ahead anyway. When the Falcons play bad run defenses like the Panthers, he's going to have some good games. The Falcons have 6 remaining games with teams that right now are in the top 10 for most yards per attempt allowed to running backs. And they have 5 remaining games with the 10 teams that give up the most rushing yards per game. So I do think he's worth a look. The only thing I don't love about it is he has not been seeing red zone touches after he saw a ton of red zone touches early this season. He's seen 1 in the last 3 games, which I don't understand. It's actually his highest 3-game rushing total of the season. And carries, they're just not coming in the red zone, which that's great for Bijan owners, not good for people like me and Best Ball that took Tyler Algier everywhere. But again, any kind of injury, I think the Falcons, like it was good to see for me as a fan and also just for that offense that they now look like they're going to steer into wherever they think they have the best advantage. And even though Tampa is struggled with the run, they saw they could exploit them with the pass. Again, evidenced by Spencer Rattler actually looking serviceable versus Tampa in his first start. Yeah. And this week versus Carolina, even though they could have thrown on them, they knew they were on the road. Kirk Cousins looked so frail out there in like the 50-degree weather. I'm like, get his ass back in a dome. They just decided they were just going to pound the rock. And I love seeing that because that is actually what Falcons' offensive line is built to do. And again, with all these games coming up against bad run defenses, I think there's going to be more games than people think where both of these guys feast.
Yeah, like just looking at Tyler Algier, we've been talking about the splits that he's had with Bijan and the fact that in the last 3 weeks, 38, 36, and 41% of the snaps right alongside of Bijan Robinson, tripled his carries from last week to this week with 18. I think that's a high mark. I don't know if he's going to be getting that without a Bijan injury even again this season, but the fact that he's just getting mixed in like this, I think he's a standalone guy right now in the Falcons offense. Like as a low end flex, I think he could do a lot worse than tossing Tyler Algier out there with touchdown equity, with the fact that he's getting mixed in so interchangeably with even a Bijan, which it sucks for Bijan. It really does. But for Algier, and again, the thesis was 0 RB. These guys just popping up being like decent starts. There's so many of them that you can plug them in your lineup. You're not taking zeros. So yeah, I think Algier is perfectly fine. Should be rostered more than 40% of leagues for sure.
All right. Rich, do you need to take a shot or anything before you make the case for Alexander Madison?
Right. Yeah, that was no, I don't need a shot, but that was definitely another one that gave me the ick while I was doing that. And that's mainly just because of the fact that I am a Vikings fan and I had to sit there and watch him for
I need a t-shirt, season. By the way, started so-and-so today, and then on the back gave me the ick.
Gave me the ick.
Gotta get those printed now.
Yeah, yep, yeah. But yeah, no, I do like him. I like what I've seen out of him anyways in Las Vegas. In the run game, he hasn't been explosive by any means. I mean, he only put up 30-some yards, but he did have a rushing touchdown. He had 5 receptions for another 32 yards, so he had a decent game last week when Zamir White was out. Zamir White is one of the least efficient backs in the league right now, and I think that Alexander Mattison should be the starter moving forward. I would be really surprised if he's not the starter moving forward. So
RIP Zamir White. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. No. Same here. So, he does get a much easier matchup this week with the LA Rams versus what he had to do against Pitt last week. They've given up the 14th most points to running backs, so middle of the road. Whereas Pitt is one of the best run defenses in the league. So, I do think that Zamir White will have a much better week this coming up week, and so he is a great play for anybody that needs a running back just in a pinch.
Yeah, it's funny how these guys, and again to Kevin's 0 RB thesis, like who would have felt like having Alexander Mattison is probably a top 20 guy most weeks as long as he's getting the volume he is in a Raiders offense. Like that's so important. As he was just talking about with Bijan and Algier. Bijan, had his best game of the year, but it was stunted by the fact that he was only on the field for about 60% of the snaps. And Madison's playing a lot of snaps. And unfortunately, again, I was wrong about Zamir White. I'm sorry. His snaps continue to go down. Madison's continue to go up. And the Raiders are going to be down a lot. And that's good. I'm somebody who believes that's good for running backs in most leagues too, because they're just trying to scramble. They're going for it more. They're, obviously throwing to the backs. And when they get in the red zone, they're still trying to score. Sometimes they get lucky and fall into the end zone. So I love that. I know we talked a good bit about Vidal, Kevin, but why don't you sum up that case for why people should be definitely more on than 16% of leagues?
Well, just to piggyback on Madison, 17 and 19 opportunities the last 2 weeks. Now he is a behind as far as like a back end efficiency guy, which can certainly stunt production fantasy wise. He had 5 catches for 32 yards. Like that's not bad as far as like establishing a kind of floor. He hasn't been great rushing the ball with 71 yards in 29 attempts. Like that's not great. Certainly.
In his defense, I think it may have something to do with the line too, which is where I really missed on Zamir White, because it looks like no matter who they put back there, none of them were able to get any yards per carry.
Right. I mean, but the opportunity, I mean, that's not bad. That just still puts him at like back end. I would say he's like either a back end RB2 at best, or like a flex guy that, those guys are pretty invaluable as far as bye weeks and stuff like that and injury fill-ins. That's probably where I would feel most comfortable putting Madison in. Like I'm not going into a week going, I got to start Alexander Madison, but
no, I don't think there should be very many guys that you give, in this show.
Unless you are like a direct member of his family and share the same blood as Alexander Madison. Maybe not even
you
then.
Just want to talk shit and be like, I picked you up just to bench your ass, bitch. That's the kind of stuff I would be doing.
Fun talk at the old Madison family reunion for sure. But getting to the matter at hand with Kamani Vidal, like we talked about before, I don't think he's going to be challenging Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins anytime soon. With Gus Edwards, certainly hurt. Hassan Haskins is still like getting carries for some reason on purpose. But I do believe Vidal can be a part, at least a consistent part of the offense. Maybe he carves out a third down role. That's still to be seen. But at the very least, he's a contingent. Think of him like a Blake Corum, where we saw him finally get worked into the offense. And now I think he's the unquestioned second running back there where something happened to Dobbins. And we talked about it with Dobbins, the fact that the dude got, 25 carries last week. And he's 17, 15, 14 carries before the bye week. And then 25 carries after. Like that's a lot for a guy that's had 2 major surgeries in the past 2-3 years. So I'm concerned about that. And maybe they want to manage him a little more. So Kamani Vidal could earn a standalone role where maybe he gets 7 to 8 carries. Maybe he gets a couple targets. And that would be total. That would put him in like the Tyler Algier, kind of group of guys that have standalone value and offenses that want to run the ball. But you just have to know that if J.K. Dobbins is healthy, he is going to be getting 65-70% of the rushing attempts in that offense. So he is right now a great contingency play with the possibility for standalone work, and that's worth something.
Absolutely. A few questions before we wrap up with the tight ends, and a name that I'm sure I will butcher, and I'll apologize beforehand. Perioko? I don't know. Got offered Rodgers, Harrison Jr., and Mooney or Hunt for Mahomes and Jefferson. I would not let go of Justin Jefferson. I know that you're getting 2 wide receivers, and actually it would not be crazy for me to Rodgers to end up outscoring Mahomes the rest of the way. Like, I don't think that would be insane, but there's no way I could give up Justin Jefferson without getting back. Just like an absolute alpha, either at QB, running back, wide receiver, etc.
Yeah,
agree or
hard pass on that.
Yeah, yep.
Robert also has a question. He wants to know, which handcuff running back would you rather have rest of the season in PPR redrafts? Oh, for me, this one's easy, and I love Algier, but Tank Bigsby.
Is he a handcuff anymore?
I was a year early, but somebody I've banged the table for all last summer, having watched him at Auburn, having a lot of good friends that went there. I thought he was going to be a really good back. I love the way he ran. It seemed to fit the NFL style. I would like to say, though, if you're going to have him playing so many more snaps, why is he still returning kicks? Like, I don't understand that. That's just asking for somebody to get, hurt, in my opinion. And then one more before we get to the tight ends.
Yes.
With the news of Amari Cooper,
shouted from the mountaintops.
What we saw with Ray Davis, and I'm the biggest Khalil Shakir truther. He is still, by the way, I'd like to add, Josh Allen, number 1 QBR rating in the NFL when targeting him. It was the same deal last year. He's a very effective receiver, but they've just proven they're not going to give him a Diggs or alpha wide receiver type volume. The real question is, who would you rather have moving forward, Tracy or Juju?
Tracy.
I think so too.
100%.
You can get like a Demario Douglas probably at wide receiver. If you can get Tracy, like, that's a potential like RB2 the rest of the way, right?
I mean, he is absolutely past the eye test. I refuse to acknowledge Saquon Barkley. He's looked like the best running back in New York since Tiki Barber.
Ooh! Wait, man, wait! I can't. I gotta clip that and send that to my
102.45.
No, I think Tracy's.
Thank you, Rich.
It's very tough to put the toothpaste back in the tube after we've seen 2 weeks of awesome production and the fact that how ingrained he's already become in that offense to go back to Devin Singletary. Like, Devin Singletary, for what he is like fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misread his question. It was Tracy. Drop Shakir for Juju. Sorry about that.
I thought it was drop Shakir for Juju or drop Tracy.
That's what I thought
for Juju. No, drop Shakir 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's so we haven't talked about either of the, well, I mean, we haven't talked about the Amari Cooper thing. We could do that real quick before we got a little bit of time, but yeah, I do think that Keon Coleman
from our text messages and the 2 gentlemen on this show, one below me and one to am I right?
Yeah, Keon Coleman vaporized. Keon Coleman's absolutely vaporized. I don't think Khalil Shakir is like quite vaporized, but he's like a dicey flex now. Like,
what about Dalton Kincaid is the one I'm worried about? Hell, he wasn't feasting even.
I'm worried about him too. I just don't see. A lot of people have a lot of optimism about Amari Cooper, and I just don't quite see it to the point of how other people are seeing it. I don't know if this meaningfully changes the Bills' offense in any like major way. Like, the offense is never flowing through Amari Cooper with a Joe Brady offense. That Joe Brady offense flows around Josh Allen and the run game and like opportunistic passing. Does it improve the Bills? Absolutely, because you go from Keon Coleman on the outside to Amari Cooper. But Amari Cooper has been literally one of the worst wide receivers in football. And some of the open score metrics and the ESPN analytics, a lot of that can be tied to quarterback play too. And he has had some of the worst, obviously, with Deshaun Watson. But if we're talking like
wait a minute now, we're really going to say some of, he's had basically the worst.
The worst.
Yeah. I was trying to be as democratic.
I know you were. Fuck Deshaun Watson, okay?
No, fuck Deshaun Watson, absolutely. I just wanted to make that abundantly clear that there are those not good people on both sides. I want to make that clear. But if we're talking about like from the catchable throw aspect of like where Deshaun Watson has been an abject failure in that regard to get the ball to any of his receivers, it's not like Josh Allen is like a bastion of getting the ball on target. The last 3 seasons, he was 30th out of 35 quarterbacks. Josh Allen was in terms of catchable throw percentage, 19th of 35 in 2022, 17th of 39, his best season. And this year, he's 27th of 37 qualified quarterbacks with 50 dropbacks in catchable throw percentage. So Josh Allen, he's not like the savior of now he's got the sterling quarterback play. I don't think that's the case, but I think Amari Cooper, a lot of the separation and getting open, that's on him. That's not on Deshaun Watson. So do I think that he improves the Buffalo Bills? I do. Going from him to Keon Coleman is definitely a net positive. But do I think it meaningfully changes the outlook of the Buffalo Bills to where now, no doubt, Super Bowl or bust? I don't think so. Not in the way that I would think Devontae Adams changes the fortunes of the Jets, because I think he does way more meaningfully than Amari Cooper does the Bills.
I kind of disagree on that last part, only because I think we saw down the stretch. I agree with you that Cooper's not going to see a monster target share. That's just not the way Brady operates. I think, though, their offense will be much more efficient.
They're going to have to be. That's the thing. That's what you're banking on. You're banking on an efficiency bump because they have Amari Cooper, who can command attention.
Air yards right now, he's first. Air yard share, third. Target depth, 13th. Deep targets, first. Do you know what his target quality rating and catchable target rate among wide receivers is? Let's play a little guessing game, boys.
It's like bottom 5. It's got to be bottom 5.
So what are you saying bottom 5? Because we're talking about this is
bottom 5, like the bottom 5, like 5th percentile or below.
Yeah, he's 90th in both.
Out of how many qualified?
I mean, I don't know how many qualified.
Probably 95
I mean, there's
or 100.
89 receivers ahead of him. That's not good. He's seen 23 targets, 48.9% are what they would consider catchable. And sometimes I've argued over how they get that. But I do.
It's a lot of the tracking stuff that they have
air yards,
in their pads and stuff.
Because like I'm kind of on both sides of this, where I think that he will. He's second in total route wins. Okay, 19th in route win rate. Pretty good percentage versus both man and zone. I think it makes the offense a lot better, but I agree with you. We saw this with Stephon Diggs once Joe Brady took over, that they're just not going to force the ball to any
and that's
one
one
guy.
of the most and that's one of the most ludicrous things that I've seen on social media too, is comparing him to Stephon Diggs when you're in totally different offenses.
No, yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. Yeah, and I will say, like, so with my optimism, it's not so much that I think that, like, I don't think that this is going to drastically improve the Bills. I just think that this drastically improves Amari Cooper's fantasy production moving forward compared to what he was having in Cleveland. I think that like just the play that he was getting there was just so awful. And and to your point, Kevin, I do believe it's going to take some time for them to get together to get that chemistry going and everything. That is the one thing that I am worried about, especially with the fact that like you've been saying, he's not getting open. That's not on the quarterback. There's only so much they can do there. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I do think that he will, in the long run, have a better year And that's all I wanted because I have so many shares of Amari Cooper. So many shares.
Again,
this is me protecting my bag.
It's great news because he's going to have some big games coming down the stretch. But I am with Kevin that like over and over and over again, it's just going to be really hard to trust him in that offense. Because again, Khalil Shakir, number one QB, like there's so many metrics that Khalil Shakir, like Josh Allen is such a good passing quarterback when they target him, but yet, I mean, look at it, week to week, he's probably gonna get like 5-6 targets and that's it. Tight ends, and then we will bounce out of here because I know we do have a show at 9:30 coming up behind us. Zachary Ertz, which one of you bastards? Rich, did you put Zach Ertz on here?
Yes, I did.
You just is there a lot of
week 2
tonight?
This is week 2. No, this was no ick. I love Zach Ertz, man. I do. I don't think
one of us.
Right. Yeah. I'm the one and only. I was telling people last week that you should pick him up. It wasn't a great week, but it was a serviceable week. He was tight end 11 on the week. He had 10.78 points or 10.8 points, 4 receptions and 5 targets for 68 yards. The big thing that we were talking about last week was the fear about the fact that his snap percentage kept going down. And this week he had a season high 80% snap count. So he definitely is becoming more involved. I'm excited about that. And Carolina's given up 7th most points to tight ends. Granted, you can only take so much away from that, seeing as how the point differential between the 7th most and the 2nd most was only 0.5 points. So, it is what it is. Tight ends are just
it's a shit show.
Scary.
You can say
it's a shit show. Tight
ends
it's a
are
shit show.
If you don't have Brock
tight ends
like
are
me in every league and every best ball because you're insane, and we're saying like he's going to be the number 1 tight end this summer, which even I didn't totally believe. It's been rough. McBride's been good to his point, and I do think Kelsey is, with Rice being out. I said it a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be just a target monster. But we saw it last week. He still didn't have like a huge, or in their last game, a huge game. It was Schuster that had the really big game. I want to give Kev a ton of credit. One of the reasons I had my most profitable weekend in DFS was he brought up Jatavian Sanders on the show Friday night. I had said, if you remember me playing Eric Hall in cash like 5 weeks in a row, that because of the shit show that is tight ends, I'm taking a guy in the 2,000 range that's going to get some volume. If they score 3 points, that's fine. If they score 9 or 10, I'm golden. And that's exactly what he did. So why don't you tell us a little bit more why people should pay attention to old Jatavian?
Yeah, amidst my flopping Jalen Coker takes from last week, I was able to find
50% hit rate's pretty good, bro. Just an FYI. Especially with Panthers.
Look, batting 500. Tony Gwynn's got nothing on me, but
that's right.
I'll find beauty in the dissonance here with Jatavian Sanders, where look, career high, 7 targets. It is 6th career game. I mean, look, you can't shake a stick at that. 23% targets per route run, 1.63 yards per route run. The fact that he was able to take Tommy Tremble was hurt with a concussion. Ian Thomas came back, and that what I had predicted was Ian Thomas was just going to be a stay-in blocker, and that's pretty much what Ian Thomas has always been, always will be, and was in week 6 as Jatavian Sanders ran 73% of the routes and earned 7 targets. So I do believe that Sanders has the ability to build on that even further. It's just that the Carolina Panthers need to get some more efficiency throughout their offense. I do know it's pretty much Deontay, whatever you get from Leggett, and then you just get like whatever from anybody else that you can get. And I think Sanders can be at least a solid, sometimes the 2nd target, sometimes the 3rd target, while they kind of work out how their hierarchy is going to go. So they play Washington at Denver. I think those are exploitable matchups for Jatavian Sanders. You got to figure they're going to be in both those games. And even if they're not in the Washington game, garbage time, baby. It's the most beautiful thing for bad teams where you can just rack up meaningless targets and touchdowns and receptions and stuff. So give me Jatavian Sanders in the gross tight end landscape where the tight end position is the ick. We will scour for Jatavian Sanders.
Again, unless you'd have listened to me all summertime, take Brock Bowers. But I I again, Sanders, what I love too is the Panthers suck. I think Kevin didn't want to say it. I was shocked. Like that.
I did.
That was, oh, you did say they sucked? Okay. Because that was the game.
I thought that was, I thought that was heavily implied.
I was nervous that they were going to blow it. That's the kind of game the Falcons blow. They come off big wins versus the Saints and Bucks, and they easily handled that game. It really wasn't close in the second half. And if that continues to happen, that's really good for Sanders, because from what I saw, having watched that entire game, a lot of his volume came when they were basically just in chuck it situation. That's a good sign for a team that's pretty bad. I mean, that's easily one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the league. And again, at a position, if you score 9 points, what was that? I think he was tight end 9 last week for the main slate. So like I said, yeah, I know.
Yeah, tight end 14 tight end 14 in PPR, but yeah, in the main slate for DFS, I think it was tight end 9. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, who wouldn't take tight end 14 with the shit show that it's been this year? When you got guys that were drafted like the 5th round that haven't been top 15 for weeks. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Eric Island with your boy.
Eric Sum.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere, bitches. The production, yes, has been rough, but the snaps, I'm still very encouraged. Last 2 weeks, only 5 targets, 4 receptions, 20 yards, but he's playing more snaps than ever. Second consecutive week, he outsnapped Mike Gesicki. Now, I know Drew Sample technically, I think, outsnapped him by 3 plays, didn't run as many routes. Among tight ends, second in target rate among tight ends. He's still 21st in tight end receptions, just to show you the shit show that tight ends are this year. First in target accuracy, and what I love, 5th in fantasy points per target. I'm starting to believe this Bengals team is just not very good. I thought they would be, but and maybe they do turn around after the Giants win, because I know the Giants' offenses look pretty good, but their defense has been so bad that I just think they're going to be down in games. And when Burrow is throwing it 30, 40 times, this guy's going to get at least 3-4 first read targets. Like we've seen that consistently week after week. And that's a big deal if you're talking about for, again, a position, if you get 8-9 points, you're going to be top 15 week in and week out. That's significant. And I could see it sort of being a situation like Trey McBride last year because when is the trade deadline?
Couple weeks.
Thursday? It is a couple weeks. Okay, because I still think there's a chance that the Bengals lose the game for that trade deadline. T. Higgins is dealt. I don't think they're going to work it out. If that happens, I think you could see Eric All end up seeing a monster volume down the stretch. And what I mean, again, obviously, it's a tight end in that sense where he's getting 6-7 targets a game. When is it?
3 weeks from today, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Then there's
November
plenty
5th.
of time.
Election day, maybe.
Oh, what a shit show that day is going to be. I'll call in sick. No, thank you. I probably won't see me on the show that day. So I'm not giving up. Like I still am holding faith. Again, this is one of those deals that, don't get me wrong, you got to have a position on your roster to put him. And if you don't, I'm not recommending you drop any, main players. But if you're one of those teams that have just a crap show at tight end, I do think if you have that spot, he's worth rostering, because he could end up being like a top 10, top 12 tight end the second half of the season. And that's when the playoffs and everything is.
Yeah, he's like the perfect guy to pick up. Like, you probably realistically should have picked him up a couple weeks ago, like in a dynasty format where he's probably just sitting out there. But for if you're like taking the plunge on a guy like Noah Gray, or like waiting on just crapola tight ends, like All is a guy you can stash. I know roster spots are at a premium, especially with bye week, so that makes it a little bit tougher.
You got 2 IR spots, it's a little easier, right, Kev? Because I know I've got so many freaking guys on IR on my team right now. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I don't even have enough people where I can put them down there. I have to have people on my damn bench on the IR because both spots are filled.
It's a match unit out there. It really is.
Oh,
but I mean, the thing about the Bengals, and they're probably like a pretty bad team. They're 1-5, but they can't. Don't tell me they can't go full Bortles and just pass their way through it. That's pretty much what Burrow has been and is doing with Chase and Higgins and Yoshivas and whoever. I mean, it's great to see for like a guy like Eric All that Jermaine Burton is literally the most useless wide receiver in the National Football League. so badly that they had to dig up the corpse of Trenton Irwin and put him out there for 6% of routes last week. So, yeah, it's good for like, because the Bengals are a weird team that run a ton of tight ends. Like they would rather have tight end for Tanner Hudson put a uniform on than run out Jermaine Burton. So that's a good sign.
Haven't watched their game. Who did they play 2 weeks ago? Oh, it was the Ravens game. He lined up as fullback at least a handful of times.
Yeah, he was out there fullback. He's very versatile. They love the guy.
Yeah, that's all I kept talking about.
Coach speak wise,
the guy.
For coach speak, the vibes are high for Eric All. But right now, for fantasy circles, he is Eric's sum until he catches a touchdown.
I know it's been rough. It looked so good for those 3 weeks when he kept catching 4 passes, and then last 2 weeks not so much. That's why I was glad I missed last week. Sick, so I didn't have to face the music. But I'll always tell the truth. I'll tell you guys. I was suggesting this is like 6 weeks in a row. Do we have any IDP guys? Did we get
I don't have anything on my sheet here, so
okay. Well,
I do apologize.
No, that's not our fault. Don't apologize. It's not on us. We're not IDP
I don't
guys.
apologize.
All right, that's what I'm talking about.
Take it back.
All right, guys, we got 4 minutes. I want to know what we want to talk about.
What's the score of the Yankees?
Who are we?
Because I'm sitting here wearing a Yankee hat. I'm putting it on right
it's
now.
It's a weird, World Series. My dad's really mad at me right now because I said I'd be okay with the Mets winning the World Series, and I mean, you would think I told him that I want the Nazis to come back and take over the world. I mean, I'm like, Dad, the Dodgers have won World Series and stuff. What do you want me to do? Like, I'd be okay with the Mets. It's been like 30 years. I'm a fan of the Falcons. I understand losing. Like, it sucks.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like every generation should get a championship.
Yep.
Yanks are up 3-2 right now. Bases loaded, 2 outs, but the worst hitter in Major League history is up right now in Austin Hedges. So,
are you a Yankees?
You know what
fan,
that means?
Kev?
Yeah.
Would you? Well, I mean, I assumed. You never know these days. Would you rather play the Dodgers or the Mets?
Mets. I hate the Dodgers.
You want to
hate the Dodgers? I think I want a Subway Series, and I don't really care for the Mets either. But I have a natural disposition to the fact that I hate people saying the Yankees are like such an evil empire when it's the Dodgers that are literally the mercenaries for hire in Major League Baseball these days.
How about the Padres who can't even make it to a World Series and they're spending like basically the same money you guys are, right?
I mean, at least the Yankees are like, I mean, who's the last guy they like really signed to a big, like what, Garrett Cole? Like that was like their biggest free agent.
Oh yeah, you're saying like all their studs are basically homegrown guys.
Well, they traded. Okay, they traded for Chisholm. They traded for Soto. You know, they traded for Rizzo at the deadline a couple years ago. But they brought up Volpe. They signed Stanton. Okay, they brought up Volpe. They traded for Verdugo.
Got Judge.
You know, Judge is a homegrown guy. Austin Wells is a homegrown guy. Torres was a guy that they got for Chapman in 2016. So
how long has it been for the Yankees? Because I really like baseball is the one that I follow, like basically
2009.
So it's been a minute.
Since
the
they
Mets,
beat the Phillies.
Has it been since '86? Is that right? The Doc year, right?
Since 09 when they beat the Phillies.
No, I'm talking about the Mets. I was saying the Mets are.
Oh, the Mets. Right? Oh,
and then the Dodgers won in the
COVID
year,
no, they won. Didn't they win a world? Was it 2015? Did they win 2015?
I don't think so.
Or was that the Royals?
I think that was the Royals. And then for the Dodgers,
2020. That was the Royals. Okay.
2020 for the Dodgers, and I unfortunately definitely remember the Twins in 1991. Thanks for breaking.
1986.
Thanks for breaking.
So it was 86.
Year-old Peace Heart, Minnesota Twins. So we've got outside of the Dodgers somebody that has not won a World Series in at least 15 years. So I'm good with any of those teams. Again, I root for fan bases.
I'm
when
just
you're a Falcons
excited.
fan, that's what you got to do, man.
I'm just excited that the poll ads are selling the Twins. We might actually have a chance to do something now.
You think?
I'm so excited.
Get Bezos in there.
Rich, you know that Joe Matz is a huge Twins fan.
Yeah?
He is the weirdest fandom of all time. He's a Bulls fan, Minnesota Twins, New York Giants. And I can't
All
even
right.
say he's like following winners. You know what I mean?
No,
It's like,
yeah.
what is going on here?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah,
It's random.
and he's an
Very
Arizona University fan. He roots for Arizona in basketball, football, and everything. He's my boy. He's Joe the Brain, but he's nuts. Okay. Just saying. This has been fun. I did miss the ladies. I'm not going to lie. I hope, obviously, Erica feels a lot better. I hope Stacy gets internet. I couldn't imagine not having the internet for like 2 weeks in today's modern world. Like, really think about that. It would suck. She told us, I asked her, I said, get a hotspot. She goes, well, I got one. And Verizon's already sent me a message since I've used it so much saying we're slowing down your signal, which, again, fuck corporations. But again, they'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll all be here. Stacey will be able to start the show with our favorite saying, the gang's all here. But until then, for Rich, the biggest Vikings fan I know, Kevin, the Zero RB God, and me, Keith Fleming, we'll see you guys.